Chapter 8. Defending against raids. Effective defense against ground raids requires timely intelligence, plans, and battle drills, prepared fighting in sheltered positions, a ready reaction force, accessible weapons and ammunition, escape routes, security patrols, and sentries and early warning elements posted far enough away to provide adequate early warning. Rehearsal of plans, battle drills, the ready reaction force, and escape and withdrawal are essential to effective defense against raids. Vignette 1. Soviet Raid on Mujahideen Hideout at Saygani by Haji Abdul Qadir. On 9 January 1981, a Soviet detachment mounted a raid on my home in Saygani village about 6 kilometers northeast of Bagram Air Base. At that time, I commanded a group of some 200 local Mujahideen who were spread among several mobile bases in the area. We would conduct specific missions in Bagram and neighboring districts in Parwan and Kapisa provinces. I rarely spent the night in my village since it is very close to the Soviet garrison at Bagram and difficult to defend. I would alternate among my mobile bases and would stay at a different location every night. I was usually accompanied by no more than 20 of my men who were disguised as peaceful civilians. A week before, JIA Commander Malawi Zahir of Gujarkel and I combined forces to ambush a Soviet DRA column at Sofi Baba along the road from Ko-e-Top to Sayad. The column had 7 or 8 trucks and 6 APCs. The column was returning from Kanaka and Niadzi in the south, where the DRA had conducted a press gang to draft recruits into the DRA army. We ambushed their column at dusk and destroyed 2 APCs and 4 trucks with short-range RPG-7 fire. We captured some 70 Kalashnikovs, which we desperately needed. We divided the weapons between our 2 groups. I believed that the raid on my home was in retaliation for this ambush. That night I had some guests from Lagman and entertained them until late in the evening in my house in the village. In the late evening I sent most of my men to other villages and kept about 40 at Saygani. 22 of them were residents of the village. Saygani is a village of about 100 homes located off the main road. My home is near the village mosque, protected by several fort-like structures ringing in the village. Map 8-1 Saygani. I posted 2 guard details, one at my house and the other at the mosque. The night was very quiet, and at midnight the snow began to fall. Early in the morning, I woke up for morning prayer. The guards on my roof reported that everything was all right. However, when I was halfway through ablutions, I noticed signal flares streaking across the cloudy sky. They were coming from the northeast and southeast. The night may have seemed pretty quiet to my guards, but it was busy for the Soviet raiding detachment. Led by local guides and informants, the raiders had stealthily walked from Bagram to the village during the snowfall and quietly occupied several buildings around the village. By dawn, the enemy had taken up positions at Haji Saitar, Rahim, Haji Talib, Raza Khan, Haji Ramat Saeed, and Amanullah forts. As soon as I saw the flares, I asked the guards about it. They said that they thought that the enemy was on the road to the village some 2 kilometers away. I thought that the flares were much closer. I had no time to gather all my men, so I took the 15 men who were staying in my house and we tried to exfiltrate from the village. Shortly after we left my house, I realized that I had forgotten my briefcase full of data about my group. I sent my younger brother to fetch the briefcase and ordered my men to move down the road to the mosque and then on the Ramat Sad fort at the edge of the village. From there, we would take the path to Mujahideen-held areas. I waited for my brother. A few minutes later, he joined me and we hurried after the group. We caught up with the group as they approached the stream beyond the mosque. The stream bed was full of Soviet soldiers in ambush. They opened up on my group with AK-74s and killed 3 of my men on the spot. The rest of my group disappeared in the dark and moved to the southwest, where they were soon trapped in another ambush and killed to the last man. An enemy tracer bullet had set my Sadar on fire. My brother warned me that I was on fire. I pulled off my burning Sadar and threw it away, but that attracted the attention of the first ambush group, who again opened up on us and killed my brother. I had lost contact with my group, and so I moved in the opposite direction and slipped out through a house at the end of the village. The enemy had blocked all streets, and escape routes, and none of my mujahideen survived the raid. The enemy killed all 40 mujahideen and 15 civilians at different locations in the village. Commentary. Lack of effective security contributed decisively to the Soviet success and led to the destruction of the resistance force. Combat security should protect a unit from surprise attack and provide sufficient time and space for the main body to prepare and deploy for combat in the most favorable conditions possible. Had the Mujahideen posted security patrols on the approaches to the village, the Soviets probably would have been unable to approach undetected and to surprise the unprepared resistance fighters. The 2 guard details that Commander Kader deployed inside the village could provide only close-in protection, but could not provide early warning or tactical security for the unit. The secrecy of the Soviet movement to the village and their stealthy deployment at the village played a decisive role in the outcome of the raid. Taken by surprise, the Mujahideen lost control of the situation and were forced to act under conditions dictated by the Soviets. The Mujahideen could have avoided the disaster by preparing contingency plans with clear-cut instructions to the combatants and group leaders in the event of surprise attack. The plan would determine the location of each combatant and subgroup leader during their overnight stay in the village. Bagram was a major Soviet installation, and the overconfidence and bravado of the Mujahideen contributed to their defeat. Once he discovered the Soviet presence, the Mujahideen commander did little to establish effective command and control over the situation. He said that he did not have time to reach every combatant and subgroup leader, but the commander failed to lead even the small 15-man group that was with him. He waited for his briefcase and told his men to proceed without assigning a group leader in his absence. The group was leaderless as it blundered into the 2 ambushes. Local informers and collaborators were also vital to the Soviet success. The Soviet detachment could not have achieved its goal without help from the inside. Such cases of collaboration created a lot of suspicion among the Mujahideen and sometimes resulted in very tragic consequences to innocent people. Haji Abdul Kader learned a very important lesson at a very high price. As he says, his group never again stayed overnight in Segani without posting a strong security detail on approaches to the village at points not less than 2 kilometers from the place. Vignette 2. Battle for Alishan District Center by Commander Sher Padshah. In August 1981, the Mujahideen controlled the district center of Alishan in Laghman province. My base was in a remote upper valley near Daulat Shah. I brought 29 of my Mujahideen south through the fertile Alishan Valley to Alishan village, map 8-2 Alishan. This is a trip of over 45 kilometers. When we arrived, we were very tired, and the local Mujahideen, who numbered 50, told us to sleep and that they would provide security. In the morning, as we were rising for morning prayers, we heard shots. The guards then realized that we were surrounded. We decided to escape into the mountains. The Badro Hills are about 3 kilometers northeast of the village and lead to the mountains. As we tried to get out of the village, we came under fire from all directions. Within 5 minutes, we lost 14 Mujahideen KIA and 50 WIA. Malawi Niaz Mohammed, the local Mujahideen commander, was among the dead. Faced with withering fire and heavy losses, we retreated back into the village to conduct a desperate defense. Our force was down to 15 Mujahideen, but our mortars were still in position from where we had set them up the night before. Besides the mortars, we had RPG-7s, PK machine guns, Kalashnikov rifles, and Bernau 20-shooters. We mounted a stubborn defense. We discovered that Soviet forces had surrounded the village. At 0800 hours, a DRA reinforcing column with tanks and infantry came from the provincial capital of Metar Lam. We started firing the mortars at the column. The DRA kept trying to get into the village, but we drove them back. Sometimes the fight degenerated to hand-to-hand combat. We hit one tank with an RPG-7. Around noon, a jeep full of Soviet advisors drove into range. One of my RPG-7 gunners destroyed the jeep. We also captured some of the DRA soldiers who were close to the jeep. We demanded that they surrender, and they did. The fighting continued until 1600 hours. Then, as sunset neared, the DRA and Soviets withdrew, leaving the village in our hands. Besides our 14 Mujahideen KIA and 50 WIA, there were many dead and wounded Afghan civilians, including women and children. I do not know what the total enemy casualties were. I'm sure that someone from the village had told the government that we were there. Some of the villagers had left the village before the Soviets surrounded it. The villagers that were left actively helped the Mujahideen in the defense. The women provided us with food and showed us where to take cover. They led us from house to house as the enemy tightened its noose around us. That evening, after the fighting, we asked the locals for donkeys and mules to haul away our dead. We put our dead on their animals and took the bodies to their villages for burial. We took our wounded to local doctors for treatment. They helped as best they could, including some of the doctors from the government hospital. The Soviets left some of their dead in the village of Alishan. They moved south to the village of Kawalkel. They surrounded the village and told the villagers to go to Alishan and recover their dead or they would destroy their village. The Kawalkel elders came to us and asked for the Soviet dead. We told them that they could recover the Soviet dead after we left. Commentary. Mujahideen nighttime security, when sleeping in a village, was usually only a guard or two posted inside the village. The Mujahideen needed to get security out to the key terrain dominating the village to provide timely warning. When the Soviets and DRA had timely intelligence, they were often able to surround sleeping Mujahideen whose guards were within yards of the sleepers. The Soviet forces were probably from the 66th Separate Motorized Rifle Brigade in Jalalabad, some 40 kilometers away. The DRA force was probably from the 71st Infantry Regiment, garrisoned only 7 kilometers away in Metarlam. The area is open and easily accessible by road. The local Mujahideen's overconfidence hurt the resistance badly.